Hello everyone, I'm Jaye Cottrill, the Global Marketing Communications Manager here at LaserTag. Every Tuesday around 2 p.m. Mountain Time, we go live with a subject matter expert about solving problems in traffic safety or professional measurement. You can join us on your coffee break. We're live for about 15 minutes. We're also live tweeting, so if Twitter's more your style, you can join us over there. If you have questions or comments for our guests or for LaserTag, please post them, and we'll answer them either in real time or as the subject of another Tuesday at 2 live conversation. Today I have Vinny, Alvino, and Steve Colburn with me to talk about vehicle crush measurement and tackle some of the frequently asked questions that we hear about crush measurement. So thanks guys for joining me.
Well, thanks for having us.
Can you just take a brief moment and introduce yourselves? I know that you're famous, but some people may have forgotten whose face goes with which name.
Well, I'm Steve. No. Steve is the far middle looking one. I'm Vinny Alvino. I'm the traffic safety product manager at LTI. Steve.
And Steve Colburn, applications training specialist. Just had my 28th anniversary this month with the company.
Oh, wow.
Dropped them off in a bassinet.
Yeah. All right, so we have a product that is really specialized for measuring close and high accuracy, and we call that the TruePoint 300. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, as the guys mentioned on the webinar the other day, we like to refer to the TruePoint 300 as a little mini total station. If some of you are familiar with that term, it's a surveying instrument that will measure horizontal angle, vertical angle, and distance. And so with it, you can do all your mapping exercises. And the TruePoint 300 is one of our more recent products we brought on, and it's just super accurate, as we'll get into. Nice and four-pole and accurate.
So what are some of LaserTag's mapping solutions that you can use with the TruePoint 300?
We primarily have it paired up with our QuickMap 3D product. That's an application that runs on a portable device, primarily for forensic mapping, accident reconstruction, that kind of thing. And it will run on both Android and iOS devices. And you've got full integration to the TruePoint 300 there.
Do they connect wirelessly, or do you use a cord to connect them?
Right. This instrument happens to connect over WLAN or Wi-Fi. So you make the connection that way, and then you get your data right in.
So what?
And they're both using the tablet too.
Oh yeah.
Just so, yeah. What they love about the tablet is that it can be either removed from the unit with your mapping, but more importantly, you can make that screen or the view larger just by pinching, or is that the word, pinching it? You know how you do it with an Apple phone or any phone? Yeah. And so the same thing, so that they can see they can see what they're working on in a bigger format. So that helps them quite a bit, because for years they had been relegated to data collectors, which have a screen size, what are they, Steve? 2x3 maybe, something like that.
Smaller than your normal phone these days.
Yeah.
So the QuickMap 3D, do you use that as a remote fire for the laser then, since you said you can take it off the unit?
Right, it's got that capability as well. As Vinny mentioned, you've got a nice big tablet to view the data. It's got remote control capability, remote firing, so you can keep the instrument still. You can even grab it after you measure a point and walk over and take an image with the tablet. So it's a great new feature for that QuickMap program.
Yeah, and what that does too, like Steve was talking about, getting that picture designated to a point in the map. So when you are mapping the scene, indoor or outdoor, you're going to get points along the way. That's what you're gathering. And so when you take a picture of that point, it actually tags it to that point. Whereas before, you might have to take that picture with maybe a camera you had, but you'd have to write all kinds of laborious notes. It should be next to the corner of this and that, or it needs to be on the table that fell over, or whatever it is, but now it's just associated with the point. So that makes it very easy to use for the operator.
So what kinds of scenes have you seen people using this system for mapping?
Well, the TruePoint 300 can be used outdoors on a crash scene. usually a smaller scene because of the visibility limitations of it, but nonetheless can be used outdoors. It could also be used indoors. With the visible laser, it works real well in a crime scene because you're typically indoors, so that visible laser gives you a place to mark a spot or a corner or a piece of evidence. And then the other thing that we knew it did crush, and that's kind of today why we're together, because Rich Maxwell, one of our trainers, has really taken that unit and showed us how to crush more easily with it. So that was what his webinar was the other day on that.
Okay, so, well, that brings up a whole lot of questions. What is crush measurement to begin with? Why would you want to know what's being crushed?
Typically, it's a vehicle. It's a vehicle, right, Vinny? There's been an accident. Two vehicles have come together. They both deformed in some certain way. So you're mapping out that deformation of the vehicle. That's essentially what the
yes. So what happens? Sure, in a crash, the impact. For instance, in Rich's example the other day, when he showed that vehicle that had wrapped itself around a pole, right? By looking at what it did to the car, the actual face of the car, by bringing it in like it did, what they're going to be able to tell from that is how fast that was traveling. The other thing it can do, if two vehicles hit one another, they can really pinpoint where the accident took place, where the two cars merged, and as a result of that, they would be able to tell the speed of the vehicle traveling. So crush is what that's all. You get those measurements so that you can get an analysis of those numbers, and then you're able to know how the impact took place, the speed of the vehicles, what they were traveling at, that kind of thing. So you can see who might have been at fault. A lot of these guys that are doing crush are independent contractors that are out perhaps for an insurance company, things like that. There are also police officers that are doing it as part of their report. But for those out there that are private or in insurance work, that would help them a lot. And so that's a nice feature that the TruePoint 300 does offer.
So I was momentarily distracted. Did you mention how precise these measurements are? I mean, with crush, I would guess you would need to be pretty precise, because
right.
Each millimeter or centimeter, I'm not sure what the math is involved, but each point of deformation is a measurement of speed of some kind.
Right. So some of you may be familiar with our pulse laser systems, like the TruePulse 200X or the TrueSpeed SXV laser and angle encoder, and this TruePoint 300 has a little different laser in it. It's called a phase laser. It's that red visible laser, and that can get down to millimeter type precision for the distance measurement. So you combine that with these horizontal and vertical encoders I mentioned before, which are both rated at 1/10 of a degree, which is getting tight. You've got the accuracy now. You're set up relatively close to the vehicles. It's not like, you're 200 feet back. You're right up there within 10 to 20 feet of the vehicles. You're not getting a whole lot of angular error, and that phase laser is really giving you some precise measurements along there. So you can keep your measurements within like 1/8 of an inch, that type of range, typically.
Okay. So what steps would someone take in order to set up and measure or analyze a crash scene with this?
It's fascinating. Rich's example that he used the other day, you look at a top-down view of the picture, and what they're looking for is the maximum penetration, or just the maximum deformation that the vehicle sustains. They find that point, wherever it may be, that maximum penetration into the frame of the vehicle. And sometimes it's not obvious where that is. You got to look under the hood, and it's the bumper, in this case, had that maximum excursion. So you start with that point there, and I guess first off, you kind of decide how many sides of the vehicle you want to map. Typically, it's just one, but you might have to map a couple of sides of the vehicle. So you position yourself accordingly. But then you find that maximum point, and then you define a level plane through that point. So for example, this case was the bumper. that level point then went pretty much right through the bumper, because the bumper really didn't tilt much. It had a straight-on collision, so it stayed pretty level. And that what Rich did, I believe, was he had a flat surface below him, so he measured up, like he measured up to that point of maximum deformation, and then he, say that was 12 inches up off the ground. He just created a line then 12 inches above the ground all the way around that crush mark, and he marked it with blue painter's tape. Great tip there. And then he set the laser up back and mapped that in. So you find that point, you establish your horizontal line, and then you set the laser up in front of that where you can see that all, and then you open up the quick map program and just do a typical radial with angle survey with the TruePoint 300. And, Rich always says to use a nice standard procedure all the time, work left to right, up to down, that kind of thing. And he likes to get in the axles of the vehicles too, if he can. Our technology is line of sight, so typically you're setting right up in front of that crush line, you're going to see it all, but getting the rear axles or axles on the opposite side, you might have to go to a target pole or something like that to use to get those shots. But you collect all your data then, you review it in the field. QuickMap allows you to view it there and query points and measure in between them if you want to really get a good idea that you've collected good data. And then you bring it into the office. The whole workflow would be then to create the CAD files and get it into the office and do all your analysis there. But that field procedure is pretty much just limited to those steps.
Yeah, and
figure out your points, get that crush defined, and then map it in.
Yeah, and I think with the accuracy that Steve was talking about earlier, and the fact that, at least in this example, Rich took so many points, boy, you could really see that mark of that demarcation, that the indentation it made around that pole, just as clear as day in the quick map. And that's just points at that point. Then Steve says you're going to bring it into a CAD program like Farazone or one of those type, ARAS, something like that. And at that point, then you can put an actual exemplary car around it, and then you can look at how much crush or penetration it took from the original line of the car that they placed over it. That was really something, the way he did that.
Yeah, it was great. Really a neat science, yeah.
It really was. And not only that, the whole big trick here is that, not trick, the whole big deal is that he did that whole thing in an hour. One guy, 1 hour to do crush on that vehicle.
Right.
And if he was saying, if he had done it the old-fashioned way with a jig or with just tape, that kind of thing, he probably would have had two guys, him and another one, and it would have taken him almost 2 hours. So, I mean, the time savings alone is remarkable. It's almost 2 to 3 to 1 of time savings. So, yeah.
So, is this something that more people should be taking advantage of? I mean, how often do we measure crush?
Yes, sir. I said, no. So I said to Rich, I said, if doing crush, if you know about the TruePoint, he's been doing this like for 150 years or whatever, but no, he only looks funny. No, he's only been doing it for about 35, 40 years. That's enough. But he said, so typically crush will be done when it's a fatality, or there's a significant amount of money damage, $1 million, some kind of really crazy amount. But he said he would have had crush on all his crashes over the years had it been this easy before. You know what I mean? So he had to choose to only do those bigger and more significant ones, even though one life or one loss is significant. But the time does not always allow that, so you've got to kind of pick and choose. But he said he would do something like this. Now, he put that as part of every file he did on a crash scene.
That's pretty impressive.
So, really, yeah.
Yeah, if someone wanted to demo this, like to try it and see how it works for them, is that a possibility? How would they find more resources or get their hands on something like this?
Yeah, we've got systems available at the factory here to send out, and we really recommend that you have your local rep meet that system at your location if you'd like to demo it. Just have them go through it with you for a quick hour or something like that. Get you running on it. It'll just save you a lot of hassle, get you up and running, and be a lot better experience. But yeah, they're available. They're come in one nice little compact case, so it's really a handy system.
Thank you. Yeah, that's pretty neat. So how would they get a hold of the contact? Would they call us here at LTI then?
Yeah,
Right.
the sales department, or call their regional guy. I mean, Steve, you have a bit of that background too. Being at the company is like you've done about everything. So I mean, right? They can call.
Available here, you bet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
They can call out their person.
So, is there anything else that you wanted to leave people with knowing about the True Point 300 and about crush measurement? I know that you've referenced a webinar that we've done recently. Quite a lot.
If there was a way that we could somehow, I'd like them to be able to look at that webinar or request a paper that he wrote. He basically did a webinar against the paper he wrote, and either one of those would be just a really nice document for somebody out there to get and to read through or listen to the webinar.
I do believe we have a blog on our corporate website that has the webinar recording in it. So at that point, we'll put a link to that blog in underneath this post so that everybody can access it. And then, of course, they can always reach out to us and ask about getting that paper, because we can definitely send that over to them as well.
That would be great. I mean, they would appreciate that. And then just Steve, like we were talking the other day, on the website too, just all kinds of there's videos, right? The one video we had the opportunity to do, and
YouTube videos for both accident reconstruction and crime scene. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. I'm going to wrap it up now. I wanted to thank everyone for spending some time with us this afternoon. If there are any new questions about crush measurement, the True Point 300, or anything else, we'll definitely pass that on to Vinny and our sales team as well. And looking ahead, we'll be talking with Jay Reister from Silo Geospatial next week on July 27th. So until then, everybody please stay safe and healthy.
Thank you.